Good morning and welcome to this Sifting Through the Rubble. We're going through a series of why questions with regards to what we do here at Memorial Lutheran School. Today's why question is why the great books? Now, we've handled great books a couple of times in Coffee with the Headmaster, in articles that we've dealt with there. And back in the fall, in October, we actually read a defense of the great books and then looked through the list. Today, we're going to take a look again at the list and talk about a few concepts with regards to the great books. One of which is sort of among the great books, which really are the ones that belong in a school's curriculum, 12th down to K, and then which ones do we only offer to students sort of later in life and encourage them to read apart from a formal curriculum? Which ones do we learn for the sake of warding students off of things that do not fit the Lutheran classical worldview? And which books that have made it onto the list may be at least cautiously read, need to be read with help. Because this book list, the great books, is one which has all sorts of different, and continues to have very many different ways of examining the world. So, why the great books? Why not something else? I meant to bring with me an important recent volume called Cynical Theories by Pluckrose and James. The last name's going to escape me. I will look it up while we're talking. Cynical Theories is a book just out last, James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay, Cynical Theories, How Activist Scholarship Made Everything About Race, Gender, and Identity, and Why This Harms Everyone. I bring this up because the critical theory perspective is starting to, well, not starting, it's continuing to lodge itself into school curricula from middle school, elementary school, all the way up into college, to the point that books like the Odyssey. I saw today that Leicester University in England is removing Canterbury Tales from the English syllabus. Also Beowulf, both gone. Why? In order to, quote unquote, decolonize the list. So as much as we can talk through which books should be read and which ones maybe we should wait on, or at least give as alternatives later on in life, we really need to instill now within our children a desire to maintain the great books and keep the great books, because many are trying to get rid of them. They're trying to remove them from the syllabus, from the list, so that you don't even read them cautiously. You don't even read them at all. The great books go all the way back, really in terms of our Greco-Roman roots. And so this first batch of books I'm scrolling through here, these take us from, with the Old Testament, at least in terms of authorship, at least as far back as 1450, approximately 1440s BC, all the way down to the time of Augustine. The events of Homer take place in the 1200s BC. He says these poems a bit later, during the beginning, right around the Dark Ages of the Greek language. But you can see here the first dozen or so, besides the Old Testament, bring us to ancient Greece. The plays of Aeschylus and Sophocles, which are read at our school in 9th grade. Herodotus, also read in 9th grade. Thucydides we don't have in the curriculum currently, but certainly he can be studied after. Hippocrates, very significant for medical studies, should probably be read, if not in high school, in college. Plato can be sprinkled throughout. Aristophanes, he has great plays. Aristotle should be sprinkled throughout. Here we have Epicurus, Euclid for geometry, Archimedes, Apollonius, Cicero, whom we read in our curriculum and our faculty is currently reading, Lucretius, Virgil we read in the curriculum, Horace we do not, Livy we do, Ovid we don't. Quintilian, this is a very significant text that should be used at the college level, perhaps in rhetoric classes in the upper high school level, but definitely should be something that children are exposed to. Plutarch, we read his parallel lives in our history in the high school, as well as Tacitus. So now we're in the heart of the early imperial period with regards to Roman literature. Nicomachus of Gerasa, his introduction to arithmetic, I have heard some trying to use to teach math, but I have not read it personally. Epictetus comes up in Wheelock's book. Ptolemy's Almagest is actually taught at our school in earth science. And then you have Lucian, Marcus Aurelius, Galen, again, very important medical and philosophical texts. The New Testament, Plotinus, which is philosophy mixed with a little bit of mysticism, and Augustine rounds out the ancient period. These books are important, and it isn't just because we say they are. They are important because they ponder human existence from a human perspective. Some, of course, are divine. You have the Old Testament and New Testament here. But in addition to the biblical works and Christian works, as we'll certainly get to in the medieval period, these texts plumb the depths of the soul and of human relations, and they've been studied by people of very many times and spaces. It's worth noting and remembering, if you learned it once, and if you haven't learned it, you can learn it today, that the Arabic world is to be thanked for the preservation of Aristotle and Galen and Hippocrates and many of the Greek works that were being read in the former Alexandrian and Roman areas in Greek, because these were translated into Arabic during the hegemony of the Muslims, especially in Baghdad and in Persia. Many of these works were translated into Arabic and used. There's also a strong history in Spain of this occurring. And that's how the works lasted until they were rediscovered later from the Greeks during the Renaissance. But the Muslims of the Middle Ages read Aristotle. They thought about Greek things because they saw them not as Greek, but as human. So an important argument for why the great books is because the great books are great because of what they teach us about humanity, about how they bring us in our time and place to other times and places to examine humankind, to examine how men interact with each other, how men fall, how men are virtuous, and women certainly. I use men generically, right? Mathematics of the ancient Greeks is not outdated. You rely upon many things that Archimedes wrote down for the first time, that Euclid wrote down for the first time. These works are significant for furthering our knowledge of geometry, of physics, of the way things work. To go to Cicero, of friendship, something that no one really knows very much about in a concrete way anymore. Friendship has sort of died in the 20th and 21st century due to the oversexing of our society. But that work of Cicero's could and does encourage real friendship. It comes up also in the Offices. That's last one listed there, on obligations or on duties. So these works, these ancient works, should not be read merely because they are Greek and Roman, and our society takes much of our thought from Greece and Rome. That can be an argument, and it's perfectly fine to make that argument. But the reason why it is best to take thought from the Greeks and the Romans is because how they thought and what they thought about gives us greater insight into what humans deal with on a regular basis. Humanity has not changed that much since the time of Homer. We speak different languages. We have different technologies. They're working on writing, on the transformation of language into written form. And first, right, carved large letters, and then papyrus and smaller letters, rounded letters. Certainly technology is changing while they're writing and being copied and being read and being performed. But these works reveal humanity to us, especially the Greek and Roman works. Now, the Christian works, like the Old and New Testaments and the writings of Augustine, show us that there's more than human wisdom to be learned. There's more than human emotion to be learned, but that God desires us to know who he is and how he works and who we are in him, and then to use that as the baseline for understanding the world. Augustine's City of God moves towards this very well as his Confessions, his On Christian Doctrine, as well as On the Teacher, guide Christians specifically to see how they can interact between the Christian and pagan worlds and use the pagan literature, of which nearly all of the first 30 or so on this list are, for the benefit of the neighbor. Now, moving into the medieval period, which is very short in this list, we deal with some things that are very significant and are being taken out of the canon as we speak. Others that some maybe have never heard of, but are still important for understanding the history of thought, understanding people around us. The first three are epics, either in poetry or in song. We study the Song of Roland here. We don't do the Burnt Njal. The Nibelungenlied is read as sometimes as literature in the Tales of the Vikings, Roger Lancelyn Green, in our medieval year in the lower upper school, 6th grade, give or take. Maimonides, Guide for the Perplexed, is something that could be studied in high school, but probably belongs in philosophy in college. Maimonides is a Jew, heavily philosophical Jew from the Middle Ages, from Spain. This is an interesting time when one studies it historically. But the Guide for the Perplexed is a bit dense, and which brings up a very important point. You can find this in the writings of Joshua Gibbs from the Circe Institute. But we should read dense, difficult books, and we should teach difficult books. First of all, it's important to meet a brick wall when it comes to learning, that some things are just really hard. And it's only by admitting them to be really hard and being guided through that process of something being rather difficult that one learns how to deal with difficult text. Many of the authors on this list are incredibly brilliant. Their writing is so brilliant that it's difficult to understand. The amount of knowledge they knew, the languages they knew, the way they could think is encased in a language that can be sometimes totally obtuse. But we should read things that seem to us to be relatively obtuse a few times, right? Sort of over and over again until we can get it. And sometimes not getting it is also a very important task for our students. Our teachers have some work cut out for them when they're dealing with the older students, because we have some texts on this list from this period. The Divine Comedy is one of them. We'll get down a little bit into Milton, Paradise Lost, because that can be a tricky text too. Sometimes you're reading these things out loud as a teacher, and you're like, "Oh, I need to prep more," because they're hard. But that's good for the teacher, and it's good for the student. So Aquinas, his Summa Theologica, properly Roman Catholic schools will teach these works of Aquinas. They may be important for Lutherans and non-Roman Catholics to study in the history of Christian thought. This would be something for someone to study probably after high school. I don't know if we would say it's essential, the same way that we would be a little bit sectarian and say Luther is more essential than Thomas Aquinas. But his Summa Theologica is just question after question and answer after answer. So when you're examining theology, it can be useful because it can show you how the medieval Western Christians were thinking. But I think if we have to share time, we should spend more time on, say, the Divine Comedy, which is a very important vernacular work of Dante Alighieri. It's in Italian originally. We have it in English and some good translations. Boccaccio's Decameron is important. Not read here, neither is Thomas à Kempis. But Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is on our list. We read it in a version in the upper school, the middle school years, and then we read it again in the high school years. Now, modern is the rest of the list. As you can see on the Word document, it's pages 2 through 6, and I won't be able to go through every single person on here in a way to either say what we're doing or not. Luther's coverage here, Table Talk, is rather funny, and the three treatises are very, very, very significant. I'm glad that when Mortimer Adler put together these, he included those from Luther. Luther doesn't write anything like Calvin, like the Institutes of Religion, where it sort of comprehensively, like a Thomas Aquinas, goes through every single question one could have about theology. But the three treatises are very, very important. That's the Babylonian Captivity of the Church, on the Freedom of a Christian, and the Letter to the German Nobility, all from 1520, a little more than 500 years ago. So those works are, I'm glad that they could be read by everyone. Certainly they'd be read at our school in the upper levels. Here you have more quote unquote science with the Novum Organum by Bacon, with Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, Harvey. Also more direct philosophy. So some of these things we would wait on. Pascal's Pensées are very good. I can see that as an independent study. I have that here. Hobbes will be covered in 12th grade. Bunyan gets read a little earlier in our school. Spinoza and his ethics could be studied at a later date. John Locke certainly is part of our government classes. Newton is involved in our physics at the middle school level, and then again at the high school level. And then you have some of the novels that we're used to thinking about when it comes to Robinson Crusoe and Gulliver's Travels, Johnson and Hume, Rousseau. A lot of these are for later because, one, they are relatively obtuse, hard to read for younger students, and two, they require a great deal of thinking and time, like Kant, Gibbon's History and the Decline and Fall of Rome. Many of these books, thankfully, are upstairs at our school. We were able to put together, we already have a few sets of the great books, but we acquired the Franklin Library Great Books, which has nearly every volume on this list. And so our students are able to access these as a result of them walking past them every day. The closer we get to us in history, the more philosophy turns into politics, the more novels pop up and plays, certainly, that people know. Lengthy novels like Hugo's Les Miserables, which is very significant, and then Darwin, etc. So when we are talking about the great books, again, there are a number of reasons why the great books belong in the curriculum of any school, but certainly a classical Lutheran school. The great books as a concept, focusing certainly on Greece and Rome first, and then the others later on as they apply. They are necessary to be read because they teach us what it means to be human, and they trump all of the isms and ideologies that have constantly arisen in the modern period. They come from a variety of authors, really from a variety of backgrounds, even though we just call it Greece and Rome in the Middle Ages. The Greek and Roman works affected people all over the world in their time and later on in such a way that most people are unaware of Aristotle's true sort of breadth in terms of affecting humankind. He didn't just inspire the Middle Ages and their focus on logic. Aristotle, Plato talked about how humans perceive and deal with things and categorize and speak. And so humans today in our United States of America need to read these writings. So we read the great books because they teach us what it means to be human. We read the great books because they keep us from becoming ideological. Certainly we have to wait for some of these books where students are older and they have a more fully formed theological and philosophical perspective, because many of these books are very convincing and they're very good arguments, and we don't want to bring some of them to the fore before we can discern through them. Others are not very good arguments that lots of people have bought hook, line, and sinker, say Charles Darwin's arguments, for example, but we need to actually engage and read it when we're discussing biology, so that our students may know how many people around them think and why they think the way they think, by examining the texts that have gotten us to where we are today. That's another good reason why Marx and Engels would belong on your high school reading list, because the Communist Manifesto needs to be read so we can understand what took the world by storm in the late 19th and full 20th century, and this way of thinking that has mutated from economic Marxism to cultural Marxism now in the 21st. The list is very comprehensive and very long. So one must be choosy when it comes to the great books. It is unlikely that Georg Cantor's transfinite numbers would occur on a general reading list for a high school or even a college curriculum, unless one really wants to delve into extremely difficult math. People who like that sort of thing are really math-minded. I have read parts of Cantor, but it is tough. It's rough. Freud is someone one would wait to study. Maybe one could do it in high school, but certainly afterwards, it'd be good to study that with people who know how to approach psychology from a Christian perspective, psychoanalysis, etc. Dewey needs to be read, especially by future teachers, so they can see what happened to education and why we have classical schools today, why we've left Dewey's system. So we read these books because they teach us to be human. We select the right volumes. Right is the wrong word. We select carefully volumes from the list, so we prepare our students with a full breadth. But since the list is so long, making sure that we cover the books that are common to nearly all people throughout time. That's why you start with Greece and Rome, because everybody read those prior to the 20th century. And then you build on top of that with the medieval the early modern, the modern works, in order to see how they correspond with or don't correspond with what's going on in the ancient world. And we read hard books even when they're tough to teach children that a tough go of it is important. And then we also do this so that way, once you've cracked through the difficulty of the work, you can reveal the nectar, so to speak, that's inside. All right, with a minute left, my meandering through the list of great books is done. Are there any questions or reflections that would be useful to our time today? All right. Next week, we discuss the why of daily chapel. Lots of Lutheran schools have chapel once a week. During the pandemic, they've live streamed it and everyone sat in their classrooms. Memorial Lutheran School has chapel every day. And during the pandemic, we've gone to chapel every day. Why do we do this? Why is it important to have children, Lutheran, non-Christian, in chapel on a daily basis? Stay tuned next week to find out why, if you do not know already. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.